Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring something pretty mind-bending, and that's quantum emotional field theory. And wow, you sent us a bunch of articles and research on this, so get ready to unpack some seriously fascinating stuff.
It really is fascinating. I mean, we're so used to thinking about emotions as these, personal, internal things.
Right.
But QEF theory suggests they're actually more like dynamic fields that can
Ah.
interact and influence each other, kind of like how, gravity affects objects.
Okay, I'm already intrigued. So you're saying our emotions aren't just locked inside of us, they have like a sort of presence outside of our minds too.
That's the idea. And one of the most interesting aspects of this concept of emotions being quantifiable. We're not just talking about like feeling happy or feeling sad. QEF theory suggests we can assign actual numerical values to these feelings, like we do with, temperature or sound waves.
Hold on, we can put numbers on emotions.
Yeah.
So like a 10 out of 10 for joy or a 2 for sadness.
It's not quite like rating your mood on a scale, but you're getting the idea. One of the sources actually gives specific examples. Joy is assigned a value of 1.0,
Okay.
while self-loathing is a negative 1.1.
So it's not just about how strong an emotion is, but whether it's positive or negative. That 1.0 versus negative 1.1, it almost makes it seem like physics.
Exactly. And that's what's so cool about QEF theory is it borrows concepts from quantum physics to try and understand how emotions work. And it even suggests that emotions can entangle and collapse, just like particles do at the quantum level.
Okay, now that's where I need a little help. Quantum physics always makes my head spin. What does it even mean for emotions to entangle?
Well, think about it like this. Let's say you're having a really great day, you're feeling, super positive,
Hmm.
and then you walk into a room where someone just had like a huge argument and the air is thick with anger. Suddenly, your own mood starts to shift, even if you don't know why you're feeling more tense.
Oh, I've totally experienced that. It's like
Wait.
their bad vibes just rubbed off on me.
Right. And QEF theory would suggest that their emotional field, that anger, actually entangled with yours, causing your own emotional state to change.
So wait, does that mean we're constantly swimming in this sea of entangled emotions, picking up bits and pieces of other people's feelings wherever we go?
That's one way to think about it. And it actually connects to a theory called ORC or R, which explores how consciousness itself might be linked to quantum processes in the brain. It's a pretty complex theory.
Maybe a bit too complex for our deep dive today.
Hmm.
But it does make you wonder if our emotions are more interconnected than we realize, right?
Absolutely. And that's what makes QEF theory so compelling, is it challenges our assumptions about how emotions work, suggesting they're not just these, isolated feelings we experience individually, but dynamic forces that can spread and influence each other.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. So if we're all entangled in this web of emotions, is there any way to, like, navigate it consciously? Or are we just at the mercy of whatever emotional waves happen to crash into us?
That's a great question, and it leads us to another key concept in QEF theory, the idea of emotional security states. You see, our emotions aren't just random, they're often connected to our sense of security, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional.
So like feeling physically safe versus feeling threatened,
Yeah.
or being confident in your abilities versus feeling anxious.
Exactly. And the source material actually presents this visually with an x-axis that maps these security states. So on one end, you have physical security. Think about like how feeling physically tired or strong affects your mood.
Hmm.
Then you move towards mental security, where emotions like, anxiety and confidence come into play.
Yeah.
And finally, there's emotional security, which is all about feeling safe and comfortable in your own skin.
To the spectrum of security from like basic physical needs to like deeper emotional needs.
Uh-huh.
But how does this help us navigate that sea of entangled emotions you're talking about?
Well, by understanding our own security states, we can start to recognize how they influence our emotional responses. Okay.
And how they might be affected by the emotional fields around us.
So, like, if I'm already feeling physically drained, I might be more susceptible to someone else's negativity. Or if I'm feeling mentally insecure, I might be more prone to anxiety, even if there's no real threat.
Precisely. And this awareness is the first step towards taking more control of our emotional experiences.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we're not just passive recipients of whatever emotional energies are floating around. We have the ability to understand and even influence them.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all fits together. But there's still one thing I'm not quite grasping. You mentioned earlier that emotions can be visualized in a multidimensional space.
Right.
What does that even look like? Are we talking about like some kind of 3D map of feelings.
That's exactly what we're talking about, and it's pretty amazing. We'll delve into the visuals a bit later, but essentially this multidimensional model maps out different emotional categories and their uh, hierarchical relationships. Think of it like a landscape with peaks and valleys representing different emotional states.
Mm,
So like climbing Mount Joy or wandering through the Valley of Despair, that's such a cool visual.
right. And what's even more fascinating is that this model isn't static. It shows how emotions can transition and evolve over time,
All right.
offering insights into how we move between different states.
Wait, so we can actually see how emotions change and interact over time? That's incredible. It's like watching a weather pattern, but for feelings.
That's a great way to think about it. And just like we can learn to predict weather patterns, QEF theory suggests we might be able to anticipate and even influence our own emotional weather, too.
Okay, I am officially hooked. This is so much more than just feeling happy or feeling sad. We're talking about like a whole new way of understanding and relating to our emotions. But before we get too carried away with all these mind-blowing possibilities, let's take a step back and really break down this multidimensional model.
Okay.
I want to understand like how it works, how it's visualized, and what it can actually tell us about our emotional lives.
Sounds like a plan. Let's dive into the details and see what insights we can uncover together. All right, so are you ready to map out some emotions?
Let's do it. I'm picturing this like 3D landscape in my mind, but how do we actually build it? What are like the landmarks, so to speak?
Well, remember how we were talking about the security states, physical, mental, and emotional?
Right.
That's our x-axis. That's our foundation.
Right. So that stretches from like basic needs, like am I safe,
Yeah.
to like more complex stuff, like do I feel secure in my relationship?
Exactly. Now imagine another dimension running perpendicular. So this is the y-axis, and this one represents the effort involved in moving between emotional states.
Effort. So you mean like some emotional shifts are harder than others?
Precisely. Think about it. Going from feeling, restless to vulnerable, that might not take much effort. It's like a
Yeah.
very subtle shift. But going from anxious to truly confident,
Hmm.
that often requires more work, more conscious effort.
So some emotions are like kind of close together on this map, while others are a real climb.
That's a great way to visualize it. And then to complete our 3D model, we have the z-axis representing emotional polarity. So positive to negative.
So we've got security on one axis, the effort to change on another, and then like good vibes versus bad vibes on the third. I'm starting to see this map take shape.
And with all of those coordinates in place, QEF theory proposes we can actually plot specific emotions. And one of the articles even included some 3D renderings.
Wait, so we can actually see this emotional landscape.
Yeah.
I have to check those out.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing. You start to see, how emotions cluster, how some are neighbors, while others are far apart. And it really highlights that emotions aren't just random. They have, like, relationships to each other.
Okay, but how does this model help us in real life? Like, is it just a cool way to picture our feelings, or can we actually use it for something?
That's where things get really interesting because, you see, QEF theory suggests this model isn't just descriptive, it's potentially predictive.
Wait, you mean we could, like, predict how our emotions will change? Like forecast an emotional storm brewing?
Potentially. Just like, we can use weather patterns to predict future conditions. This model, with enough data and understanding, could help us anticipate our own emotional shifts or even like broader social trends.
Okay, that is mind-blowing, but hold on. Wouldn't that require, like, constant monitoring of everyone's emotions?
Yeah.
It sounds a little, I don't know, Big Brother-ish, doesn't it?
It's definitely important to consider those ethical implications as this develops.
Hmm.
But, imagine if this technology was opt-in and it was used only by, those who want to understand their own emotional patterns better.
Okay, so more like a Fitbit for your feelings.
Yeah.
You choose to track your emotional data and use it to become more, like, emotionally fit.
Exactly. And the more data we have, the more accurate the model becomes,
Mhm.
potentially leading to, more personalized insights or interventions.
So it's not about, like, controlling everyone's emotions, but about giving individuals more agency over their own emotional well-being. I like that.
And that's where this idea of mental filtering comes in. It's a key concept in QEF theory.
Mental filtering, you mean like choosing which emotions we let affect us?
It's more than that. It's about recognizing that we're constantly bombarded by emotional fields from, people we interact with, media we consume, even just like the general mood of a place. Mental filtering is about becoming aware of these influences and consciously choosing which ones we amplify and which ones we attenuate.
So it's like we're DJs of our own emotional soundscape,
Yeah.
choosing which tracks to fade out and which ones to crank up. I love that analogy.
It is a powerful analogy, and just like a skilled DJ creates an amazing mix, we can learn to curate our own emotional experience by being more mindful of the emotional fields that we're exposed to.
But isn't there a danger in filtering out too much? Don't we need to, like, experience the full spectrum of emotions, even the unpleasant ones?
Yeah, it's not about denying or suppressing emotions.
Hmm.
It's about recognizing their temporary nature and
Hmm.
choosing to focus on the ones that serve us best. It's like you wouldn't want to blast heavy metal music 24/7, right?
Right.
Sometimes you need a calming melody, sometimes you need an energetic beat. It's all about balance and understanding what music helps you thrive.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's not about being, like, emotionally numb, but emotionally intelligent.
Precisely. And QEF theory gives us a framework for understanding how this emotional intelligence works at like a deeper level. It's about recognizing the power of our thoughts and actions to shape our emotional fields and in turn influence the fields around us.
So it's almost like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Our own emotional state can, like, create waves that spread outwards, influencing others and shaping the, like, collective emotional landscape.
And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of QEF theory, and that's its potential implications for creativity.
Oh, yeah. One of the articles mentioned how artists might tap into collective emotional fields to create works that resonate deeply with audiences. How does that work?
Well, think about it. If our emotions are interconnected, artists with their heightened sensitivity and expressiveness, they might be especially attuned to these subtle emotional currents that are flowing through society.
Okay.
They almost become like antennas, picking up signals from the collective unconscious and translating them into art.
So it's not just about, like, individual inspiration, but about channeling, like, the emotional energy of the times. It's like emotional archaeology.
That's a great way to put it, and it kind of explains why certain works of art capture the zeitgeist of an era becoming like anthems for entire generations.
Hmm.
They're tapping into something deeper, something shared, something that resonates on an emotional level beyond individual experience.
That is so cool. It makes you wonder if those artists are, like, consciously aware of what they're doing or if it's more of an intuitive process.
That's a great question, and one that probably varies from artist to artist. But regardless of the level of awareness, QEF theory offers a fascinating lens for understanding how art can connect us, move us, and even inspire social change by tapping into the power of collective emotions.
This is all so mind-blowing. It's like we've gone from talking about personal feelings to exploring the emotional fabric of reality itself. But there's one big question that keeps popping up for me. If our emotions are truly like these quantum fields, always in flux, constantly interacting, where does our sense of self fit in?
Ah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't
Is
it?
our identity just the sum of our entangled emotions, like a kind of constantly changing emotional fingerprint? Or is there something more, like a core self that transcends this ebb and flow?
That's something that philosophers and scientists have been debating for centuries. And QEF theory, while offering some amazing insights, doesn't have a definitive answer yet.
It's almost like we've opened, like, Pandora's box of emotional possibilities, but we're still searching for the key to unlock the deepest mysteries of the self.
And that search is what makes this whole exploration so fascinating, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's like we're on a grand adventure of self-discovery, armed with the tools of quantum physics.
And who knows what wonders we'll uncover along the way.
Wow, okay, my brain is, like, still buzzing after that last segment. I mean, we've covered so much, like, from personal emotional landscapes to the idea of, like, artists channeling collective feelings. It's a lot.
It is a lot to take in, for sure. But remember we're just starting to explore the implications of QEF theory. There are so many potential avenues to investigate still.
Speaking of new avenues, one of the articles that you sent mentioned potential connections between QEF theory and, like, spirituality. Now, I'm not usually one for, woo-woo stuff, but this definitely caught my eye.
Yeah, it's definitely an intriguing connection. I mean, think about it. If our emotions can entangle and influence each other beyond physical limitations, it opens up all these questions about the nature of consciousness itself.
So, like, could consciousness be, I don't know, more than just an individual thing? Could there be some kind of, like, collective consciousness, like what some spiritual traditions talk about?
That's one interpretation. And QEF theory, with its focus on interconnectedness and non-local influences, could offer a scientific framework for understanding these ideas that have been around for centuries.
Like QEF theory is almost like providing a bridge between science and spirituality, showing how these like seemingly separate realms might actually be intertwined.
Exactly. And it could change how we view our place in the universe. Instead of seeing ourselves as these, isolated individuals, we might start to recognize our interconnectedness as part of a larger web of consciousness.
Yeah, that's a pretty profound shift in perspective. It
Hmm.
makes you wonder if like practices like meditation or mindfulness, which focus on cultivating, inner peace and connection, could actually be influencing those emotional fields that we've been talking about.
Hmm. It's definitely a possibility worth exploring. I mean, if our thoughts and intentions can shape our own emotional fields, it stands to reason that they could also have a ripple effect on, the collective consciousness.
So maybe those ancient wisdom traditions were onto something after all. Right? It's like science is finally catching up to what, mystics have been saying for millennia.
It is an exciting time to be alive, that's for sure. As we delve deeper into the mysteries of consciousness and the nature of reality, who knows what we'll discover?
Well, this whole deep dive has been mind-blowing. It's like QEF theory is a lens that allows us to like see the world in a whole new light,
Yeah.
revealing like the hidden connections and influences that shape our lives.
And it empowers us to take more responsibility for our own emotional well-being, knowing that we're not just, passive bystanders, but active participants in this incredible dance of
So
emotions.
what's like the biggest takeaway that you hope our listener walks away with today?
Hmm. I'd say it's this. You are not just a collection of feelings. You are a powerful creator of emotional energy, capable of influencing not only your own life, but the world around you. Embrace that power, cultivate your emotional intelligence, and use it to create a more harmonious and fulfilling reality for yourself and everyone you touch.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought. If our emotions truly are like quantum fields, full of infinite possibilities and interconnectedness, what will you choose to create with yours? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of quantum emotional field theory.